Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Matt Farmer and the Blue State Cowboys.
Thank you, folks. My name is Matt Farmer. This is my friend Annalie Kane. Brian Wilkie over here on guitar. When I was here last month for Mick and Ben's show, toward the end of the night, I told Mick, I'm going to write a song about Bruce Rauner. Did I not? And so 2 weeks ago, I wrote a song about Bruce Rauner. We recorded it in my house 2 weeks ago. My 12-year-old slapped a video together for YouTube, and it's had about 20,000 hits in the last 2 weeks. It's been written about in The Economist. It hasn't made any of us a nickel. And today was the first time we got together to play it live, so I'll try to remember some of the words here. But it's called Plutocrat, the Ballad of Bruce Rauner. Hopefully by the last chorus you'll be singing along with us. Some rich guys buy fancy cars, some spend their money on old guitars, some go in for private planes and boats. Well, I like houses, I own 9, and I drink $6,000 wine, and I'm trying hard to buy your November votes. Yeah, my wristwatch cost me 18 bucks. I wear Carhartt clothes when I hunt for ducks, and I even drive around in a beat-up van. But I'm a straight-up blood-sucking billionaire who hates paying taxes for Medicare, and I bank in the Cayman Islands anytime I can. So Springfield, get out the welcome mat. What this state needs is a plutocrat, a smashing, burning, union-busting guy. I'll hammer and shake that Capitol dome like it's a grandma stuck in a nursing home. Hey, Grandma, it's time to say goodbye. Well, I'm mighty proud of one thing I did trying to educate my suburban kid. I had Arnie Duncan lend me a helping hand. He took my call without hesitating, then my kid got a spot at Walter Payton, and I gave that school $250 grand. I want charter schools in every town where the kids are poor and black or brown. You know, I've even got a school named after me. And I could have sent my own kid there, but I'm a wealthy man, and it's only fair that her school be largely white and bourgeoisie. So Springfield, get out the welcome mat. What this state needs is a plutocrat, a smashing, burning, union-busting guy. I'll hammer and shake that Capitol dome like it's a grandma stuck in a nursing home. Hey, Grandma, it's time to say goodbye. Let it go, Brian. The latest craze, but I try not to talk about marrying gays. Social issues bring my numbers down. The same is true for reproductive rights. I don't want to start any needless fights. I'll be a blank slate until I win that crown. I've got my own economic plan, but like H.G. Wells' Invisible Man, the details, well, they're mighty hard to see. I do my best to avoid the stage if they want me to talk about the minimum wage, because I'd rather have those people work for free. So Springfield, get out the welcome mat. What this state needs is a plutocrat, a smashing, burning, union-busting guy. I'll hammer and shake that Capitol dome like it's a grandma stuck in a nursing home. Hey, Grandma, it's time to say goodbye. Help me out, Winnetka. So Springfield, get out the welcome mat. What this state needs is a plutocrat, slashing, burning, union-busting guy. I'll hammer and shake that Capitol dome like it's a grandma stuck in a nursing home. Hey, Grandma, it's time to say goodbye. Let's tag it. Hey, Grandma, it's time to say goodbye. Bye-bye. Brian Wilkie. channel he can. Thank you.
Matt Farmer.
That was great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Big hand. All right.
But of course, Bruce
Fire up.
Rauner's just going to fade into oblivion, right? So we'll remember this song fondly, the moment that was. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, well, it's been known to happen before. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate it. I'm Mick Dumke. That on the, I guess it is on the far left as people are looking at it, is Ben Joravsky.
Where else would I be?
That's right. We are reporters for the Chicago Reader, and joining us tonight are two great local politicians. Will's startled already when I said great. I guess he's not used to that. A great politician can cut either way, as you know. So we'll discuss that. But we have to the left of Will is State Representative. This is just a joke I'll keep making all night. State Representative Kelly Cassidy from the far north side. I'm not saying whether I voted for you today, Representative Cassidy, although I do live in your district. I did vote for you, but anyway. Just to the right of Kelly Cassidy is Alderman Will Burns of the 4th Ward, who is a former state representative, right? So we're, in addition to hearing about you guys, we are counting on you for insightful analysis as this evening goes on. Will is startled again.
Yes.
This is already a theme for the evening.
Wait, Mick, before we get that insightful analysis, I've been asked to read this, that this program is being cablecast live on CAN TV Channel 27 and is streaming live at cantv.org. What's that, backspace live? Information about CAN TV program is at cantv.org. So I've been asked to read that.
All right, yes.
We're
grateful to CAN TV
yes, sir.
for being here. And so all of you guys are part of a live audience. Try to, keep it somewhat clean, except when we're talking
Tim
about
already
Bruce
blew
Lee.
that in the introduction.
Exactly.
He owns the bar, so it's all downhill.
He can do whatever he wants, I suppose. I was also supposed to add that Matt Farmer and the Blue State Cowboys are available for gigs, and they have a wider repertoire besides Plutocrat, even though personally I could hear that over and over again. So just so you guys know, we're grateful to them for being here as well. So let's jump right in. What is going to happen tonight? Will?
So the polling, the sort of average of all the polls say that Governor Quinn has a 0.8% lead over Bruce Rauner going into today. 4 years ago, Nate Silver at 538 blog or whatever said that Bill Brady had a 90% chance or 89% chance of beating beating Pat Quinn. This time around, he's saying that Pat Quinn has a 66% chance of beating Bruce Rauner. So the long and short of it is that no one knows. And part of that is because the machine doesn't exist anymore in the same way that people are used to having a precinct captain 40 or 50 years ago know how many votes were coming out of their precinct, either on the Republican side or on the Democratic side. I mean, both parties had machine counties and machine jurisdictions. I think part of the other thing is that the unfavorable ratings for both candidates were really, really high. And I think that also makes it very difficult to predict who's going to win, because normally people like the people they vote for to win.
Is that true? Do you guys like the people you vote for?
Or do you put up with them?
I'm feeling very popular.
Wait, did you have an opponent in this
I
list?
did have an opponent. There was actually mail done by the state party. Did you get it since you live in
I did get mail.
Their
from this
universe
individual.
sampling was really awesome, wasn't it? Like you getting a piece.
Well, I've voted for Republicans before. I voted.
Henry Bayer, the president of AFSCME, also got the hit piece on me. I mean, they really did a genius job of their data mining. But yes, there were 2 pieces of mail done on behalf of my opponent by the state party.
Okay. The
And
state Republican Party.
The state Republican Party, yes.
Which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Bruce Rauner.
Exactly. It completely. So this is literally the working definition of money to burn.
Okay. Well,
He gave them $7 million, by the way.
who gave who 7?
Bruce Rauner gave the state Republican Party $7. I just tell these numbers. $7 million.
I'll have to take your word on that.
And then they turned around and gave $2.5 million back to his
Yeah.
campaign. Go figure. But and then of course, just as long as I'm throwing the numbers out there, he gave himself, last reckoning, $27 million.
Yeah.
So
Kelly, here I have a question for you, and I guess for Will too. Why is this election as close as it is? I mean, I know I live in my little bubble where I don't think there's any Republicans that exist in my bubble. So I know there's a world outside my bubble. But,
Well, I mean, my bubble has less than 1,000 of them.
Yeah. So why is it as close as it is? Is it that Pat Quinn? Well, you answer the question before I give you the answer. Why is this election so close? I mean, Blagojevich has been in jail for how many years now, so we can't blame him.
You can always blame.
Yeah, we can always say,
It's
okay.
very handy. It's very handy. No, honestly, there are a million reasons, but most of them are that we don't really work hard at getting information. We take the information that comes, in small 140 character tweets, and the media hates
Pat Quinn?
Pat Quinn.
Yeah. Would you blaming it on the media?
No, I'm not really blaming it on the media. I'm blaming it on, there's no good way to spin the
Yeah.
situation we're in. There's no good way to talk about, there's no short-term solution to this incredibly long-term problem.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier to just say everybody who's there should go.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people really, the shake it up and all that crap resonated. Something's got to give. And so I think a lot of people early on really did buy into that. And it took a lot of doing to just claw back from that.
I see. So I mean, just like is there the general trends going up that I know I'm outside of the mainstream, but like unemployment is falling. So shouldn't this be a decisive victory for Pat Quinn and the Democrats?
You would think, but generally speaking, politicians are just this side of toe fungus in terms of popularity. I mean, come on, right? Will.
Toe fungus, huh?
I fix people's sidewalks, so they're pretty happy about that. I think what's hard for state politicians in Chicago is that the political culture of the city of Chicago is to focus on city politics, on the mayor, on the city council, on whether my garbage got picked up.
Sometimes
the
that
potholes
helps
got
us.
fixed. Sometimes that helps, but in large measure, Springfield might as well be the dark side of the moon. I mean, I worked on Senate staff for 5 or 6 years and was a state member of the state house and literally was invisible. And then when I became an alderman, it was like, oh, alderman, I want to talk to you about this and da-da-da-da. And, I was like, well, meet my state rep. And they're like, we don't care. No offense. I mean, because I think what they do is great work. But, no, it's true. It's true. It's true. I meant it. I wasn't, it was heartfelt. I was being present. I was in the moment.
I was feeling it. I really was.
But anyway, but I think so one, Springfield's distant, right? Like most Chicagoans haven't been there since they were like 12, right? They went one time and they never go back. The second thing is I think Kelly's right. There are a lot of bad things that have to be dealt with as a consequence of years of other bad things happening. But I also think that people feel like they have not benefited from the economic growth. Unemployment rates may be down, but the income gap is really high.
Okay.
The people are still digging out from the foreclosure crisis. People are still sort of feeling whether or not their home values are going up. They're still wondering whether or not they're safe and secure. I think there's a lot of surliness and uncertainty, and I think that feeds into the sense that things aren't going on the right track. It's not that people are thinking about pensions. They're thinking about themselves, and they're thinking about the lives that they live and whether their streets are safe and whether they feel comfortable and whether they feel like they're going to have a job tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety that came out of 2009, 2010 that we've not dealt with. And unless we do things like increase the minimum wage, have progressive taxation, do a bunch of things that help to create a broad middle class, you're going to continue to have the kind of political polarization we've seen and the uncertainty at the same time.
Well, that's interesting because that alienation or that sense of doom and gloom that you just described, when it's played out locally in Chicago, is sort of leading to an insurrection against a plutocratic government, Mayor Rahm. And I know Will and I are going to go at it. But anyway, but on the statewide level, it's working exact the opposite.
You're not the
In
last
other
man
words,
to
that
vote for him
uncertainty and
there,
that
too.
alienation is helping a man who's probably not that different than Mayor Rahm, politically speaking.
Are you talking about Pat Quinn?
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about Pat Quinn being the beneficiary. I don't know. Am I misreading it in your humble opinion, Kelly or Will?
Well, I don't think they're politically very alike at all. I mean, they are both wealthy men. That we can't deny. But, you know, Rahm's politics are not Bruce's politics. And Rahm very much has a social agenda. Let's start there. He's very proud of his social
Oh, you're
agenda.
talking about in terms of his opposition to his gun control advocacy, that kind of thing.
His advocacy for gun control. He's marriage equality. He's pro-choice. He is working with us to modernize our marijuana laws. He does not shy away from these.
Wait a minute.
He doesn't. Yeah, he is.
Hold it, I'll give
This
you-
is a guy who went one step further than anyone was asking him to,
Which
and
is
wants
like-
to downgrade the
That's like 10
charges
steps
for.
away from where we should be.
Like,
Let me just
we should
pause for
all
a second
be
and say
at-
we didn't
at-
even bring up marijuana.
Yeah, right.
Somebody else brought it up. This was not
I'm
a
usually
plant.
accused.
This person is not a
I
plant.
brought some from the south
Yes,
side.
thank you. Well, Mick
to help
did bring
out,
the medical
help the
marijuana.
conversation.
Yes, no, it wasn't a plant.
All right, so you guys, you know, had a little back and forth going here. You're saying that he is helping to modernize marijuana laws. Ben's saying he's not.
Absolutely
I've
not.
been reporting on this incessantly for the last several years, and you know,
I went to great lengths to get
Yes.
his policy even more broadly described at the last hearing of the Criminal Justice Reform Commission. Because, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised to hear him talk about beyond charging decisions on marijuana, but also on other controlled substances. He wants to do downgrades on those. But then I went further and wanted him to more clearly articulate the idea of whether there should be collateral consequences for tickets. The fact that there should be a statewide policy, so it's not based on what you look like or where you live. And he agrees with those points. He agreed with them on the record.
Yeah, but meanwhile, people are getting arrested for nickel bags.
They are, and,
Yeah,
and
all
we
the time.
called him out on that, and we talked about that, and that's why I think he's going to help push for this on the statewide level.
Let's pause for 1 second just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here, okay? Going back a couple years ago, I'm sure since this has affected all of your recreational habits, you know this, but the mayor, after some pushing, signed off on this ordinance, right, that allows police to give tickets for low-level possession of marijuana, but it doesn't require them to give tickets. And so what Ben is harping on here, and not inappropriately, is the fact that for at least a while, the ticketing was rarely used, and the arrests continued at a slightly slower rate. But who was getting arrested? Black and brown
that is no
kids,
doubt.
so
Those
that was
numbers that were
unchanged.
released were stunning and disgusting.
So
but I want a statewide policy to change that completely.
Okay, so Representative Cassidy, you've come out and you were ahead of the curve on this. You and John Fritchie and a couple of other state reps, Christian Mitchell from down in your hood, Will, came out and said, we think you should
Mike
be talking.
Zaleski,
Mike Zaleski. We think you should be talking about the next step, which is actually not just decriminalizing this, but actually legalizing it. And then, sort of in response, Mayor Emanuel has said, let's decriminalize it statewide. Let's even decriminalize low-level possession of heroin and cocaine and other hard drugs. And so that's sort of where the conversation is right now.
Right.
Correct?
But it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you look at, I think the number is around 300% in terms of the growth in real dollars year on year from the 1970s through the mid-2000s in terms of state spending on corrections. Outside of healthcare, it was the fastest growing area in the state budget. And it was done to house low, nonviolent offenders who owned or possessed small amounts of drugs. And it's the stupidest policy in the universe. Mm-hmm. It's just dumb. And so, I worked in Springfield on these issues. I think the mayor's position on this stuff is right. And I think it's because of people like Ben and Mick Dumke and some of the people in the room who pushed the mayor and pushed the city to do some of these.
Go ahead.
Who pushed the city to, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, I didn't know if I needed a cue or something. But I think it's because of your advocacy that these things are happening.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Will, but I really don't think they're happening nearly fast enough. And
I couldn't agree more. I've always said politicians evolve much more slowly than humans.
yeah, well, it is a good line. Really full of good lines. I'm gonna steal that line. But to me, it's almost it's similar to the painfully slow evolution on same-sex marriage. Which how many years did that take before it finally passed? We were just barely ahead of Indiana, which is nothing to brag
But to be
about.
honest with you, it was only 2 years from when we passed civil unions. Like, if you think about what...
And how long was that from ending discrimination? I mean...
That
we're
was
talking-
2001 that we did discrimination. I mean, literally, I spent 20-some years trying to pass civil rights. And then we, in very short order, got civil unions and then marriage. It was a painful 6 months from when we thought it was going to pass until it did.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And let me tell you, every second of that time was years off my life.
I
I
suppose
think it took a long time, but then all of a sudden the walls came crumbling
Yeah.
down, and now you're
because it's
seeing
just utterly
court
absurd
rulings
not to
everywhere.
pass it.
Absolutely.
And so at some point it'll be the same thing with marijuana. And so what frustrates
And
me,
I compare
suppose-
them all the time. I say that tax and regulate, full legalization is a when, not if, just like marriage was.
So what's frustrating is to watch how slow it takes, and how many roadblocks are put up. Like for instance, going back to Mayor Rahm, Karen Lewis, when she was still in the race or sort of in the race, called for the legalization of marijuana, and so we could use the taxes to help fund our government. And then Mayor Emanuel quickly came out and said, "I will never be for the recreational use, endorse the recreational use of marijuana to raise money for our budgets," which is an absurd statement to make, because someday it'll probably be as mainstream as decriminalization.
If you look at if you look at the 1930s, FDR got more revenue for the New Deal government by pushing the end of prohibition and bringing back federal excise taxes on alcohol. So look, I tend to be more libertarian in my approaches to government. I don't think that marijuana is going to kill anybody.
Why was that funny?
No, it's because he started off by saying he's brought the marijuana from his home base, and so
I wanted to share with my friends on the north side. Crossing
Lord knows
bridges.
there's no
Have you not
marijuana
been
on
to
the north
Rogers
side.
Park?
No, I didn't have. I have not been there.
It's at Hyde Park.
I've looked at the numbers. There's marijuana all over the city.
But if you look at Colorado,
Yes.
and what Colorado's been able to do in terms of taxing recreational marijuana, it's certainly a revenue source that we have to look at. I don't think it's any worse than beer or lottery tickets, and I think it's something we need to be looking at.
No, I'm just saying that we should not give politicians a pass on social issues by saying they're progressive on social issues when they're really very cautious and scared.
Ben, I got to say, I was very much making a distinction between the
Rauner and Rahm.
Rauner, who claims to not have one, which is the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard.
Wait, which part?
On the record, ladies and gentlemen.
Kelly, tell me what you really feel like. Wait. Which
Dear God,
part?
how do you not have a social agenda?
Oh, yeah. No,
Please.
Yes. No, I know. Which, by the way, I don't understand why Wait, hold on.
It still
All
has
right.
the creases
We-
from the packaging.
This is a good
There's no
moment to
dirt on
pause.
it either.
First of all,
the Timberlands are very clean too.
First of all, we want
There's
to.
cardboard in the
There's a
collars.
couple people we need to
Right.
loop into this conversation. First of all, our guest producer, special guest producer, Ken Davis.
All right,
over here.
Kenny
Everyone,
D.
please. Veteran journalist and talk show host Ken Davis of Chicago Newsroom is with us. Ken, is there anything we need to know about the election so far?
Yeah.
Any results in?
Watching a whole variety of things here. The Tribune just reported that the bar is free at the Allegro at the Quinn headquarters. So if you want to just run over to the Allegro real quick.
But do they have
But-
marijuana?
But over at the Hilton, the Bruce Rauner bar is a pay bar. So
He is so cheap on top of everything.
They've already spent the $27 million. I mean, come on, guys.
it's gone.
What's a bar tab? Jeez.
You should know that Tom Cotton, the Republican, just won Arkansas.
Which was a Democratic seat, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, that's a loss.
Let's see. Tom Wolf, the Democrat, has won over Corbett in Pennsylvania.
Governor's race, Pennsylvania.
And Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia. That's the first pickup for the Republicans. Mitch McConnell, they declared like about 30 seconds after the polls closed, he won. But that wasn't a pickup. So there is a pickup in West Virginia, so the Republicans now need 5 seats. And NBC has declared that the Republicans are going to keep control of the House.
Oh, wow.
We
That's
didn't
bold.
know
Does
that. We
anybody
didn't know.
up here know the numbers? Okay, this is national. Now. I know you guys, your expertise.
Hold on a second. We need to. There's another guest who's going to join us for part of this conversation. I want to invite Alderman Robert Fioretti to come up and join us. Special guest. We're to continue our joke. We're positioning you to the far left. Only Ben is left.
Oh,
of
yeah,
you.
I'm so far left. You're going to put me in the parking lot pretty soon. Will or Kelly, so this is the national he's talking about, and of course the Democrats are the controlling party as we speak in the Senate, National Senate. And what is the breakdown? Remember, is it 55-45? Am I correct on that, Will?
And you just said they need to pick up 5 more?
Yeah, but with this, the new thing we're just seeing now with Cotton's win over Pryor in Arkansas, I'm not sure if that's a net pickup or not.
I
So
think
it's
that's
5 or
a
4.
pickup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
Democrat. That's a pickup because it was a Democratic seat. So
So it's now down to 4.
Democrats, of course, are hoping also to pick up a Republican seat or two, which is probably a long shot. But like in of all places like Georgia, I think it's up for grabs, right? Where,
Nate Silver just increased the likelihood of Democratic Senate to 80%.
of a Republican
Republican
Senate.
Senate.
I'm sorry, yeah. Well, yeah.
Wishful, yeah.
So you have
wishful
to.
thinking.
So Kay Hagan has to hold in North Carolina. You have to have Begich in Alaska.
Yeah.
You've already lost West Virginia. You've lost Kentucky. Those were both reaches on the Democratic
Georgia.
side.
Well, no,
Still
they
out
didn't
there.
lose Kentucky. It was already Republican.
But the idea was for the Democrats to take
I
them
see.
in case they had losses someplace else.
Okay, to offset.
and because they can't stand Mitch McConnell.
He's a handsome man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll take that back.
Well, here's now locally. Now, please explain this because Ken and I were having a long discussion about this. The equivalent on the local level has to do in the State House, sort of, kind of. Kelly, please explain this to our listeners or people out here. What has to happen if Mike Madigan is to lose his supermajority?
I like that laugh.
You know, yeah, right. Given that there were no tsunamis or earthquakes today,
Yeah.
we're going to hold. You know, in order to lose the supermajority, we would have to lose a seat or 2. We hold the supermajority by 1. It's 71 seats is the supermajority. 60 is a majority. He's certainly not going to lose his majority.
Wait, now, what does supermajority mean?
It
What
means
is
veto proof. It would mean that if Bruce Rauner were to be the governor, if we held all of our seats, if we held on to 71 seats, wouldn't matter what he did, we could override him.
Okay.
That said, you know, there are seats in play in both sides. I've been all over. I've been out in Rock Island. I've been up in Lake County, helping colleagues and walking for them because there are some really tight races out there. You know, one of the Lake County seats is going to involve some of those precincts that have to stay open late. So some of my friends are going to have some late nights. So it really is a question of turnout. It's a question of everybody's ground game. GOTV was hot for everyone. You know, we had the joke about the robocalls to the election judges
Yes.
today. That affected some of the precincts in my area. So it's going to be an interesting night to see how it all plays out. But in order to lose the majority, we would need, you know.
Oh, the majority, no.
Yeah, but to lose the supermajority, we'd need to lose 1 seat.
Is that likely or?
As I said, there are seats that are at risk for us. There are seats that we're playing on the Republican side. I know that the minority leader really feels a lot of pressure among his caucus to pick up at least a couple seats to prove his mettle. So they're certainly all in, and
So
they've had the money to play.
So does this put progressive Democrats in Chicago in the unusual position of rooting for Mike Madigan because of the likelihood or possibility, I should say, of a Bruce Rauner victory? Is that what this all means? And yes, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
I don't know that it's rooting for Mike Madigan, but you know, for my part, some of the people that are at risk are people like Mike Smitty, who is the most unlikely progressive in the state. He represents Western Illinois. He votes probably left of me sometimes with, some balancing out pieces where he's pro-gun and I'm not. So, those are the kinds of seats that they're really going after. Those are the most vulnerable targets. People like Mike Smitty or Sam Yingling up in Grayslake, the only openly gay member from outside the city. So what I'm rooting for is to keep some of those progressive voices that took risky votes, hoping to keep them around.
But if Bruce Rauner were to win as governor, then what I'm saying is that people, Democrats and progressives, would basically be looking to Michael Madigan as sort of the stopgap here.
Look, I think Cullerton more than Madigan. I mean, he's always been the more progressive backstop. The Senate has always been a safer zone for progressives.
Okay. Let's get Alderman Fioretti in the conversation here. Yeah.
I was enjoying it where it was.
Yeah.
So, Bob, if Bruce Rauner were to be our governor, what would that mean for the city of Chicago?
Rauner, Rom, same thing. So
You missed the beginning of the discussion.
Do I have to do it again?
Let's go, man.
That's it.
Kelly and I were.
So
duking that one out.
why are they the same? Why are they the same
From your
thing?
point of view?
I think he's a good Republican. The mayor is. So, let's face facts. Privatization is his key, and the two of them come out of the same cloth. And I think this move to the left for the last couple of weeks, maybe the last few months, just doesn't cut it across the board. So I think we are in for a lot of changes, but he's going to get past the election, and then once past the election, watch out, Chicago.
Are you talking about
But he's not going to
okay.
win.
All right.
He's not going to win. I'm going to tell you that right now.
You sound like a man who's running for mayor.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Alderman Fioretti is running for mayor, right? Okay, let's get that out there just in case. Okay.
Well, I'll put it to Will then, as a supporter ally of Mayor Rahm. What if Rauner wins? What does it mean for Chicago?
It's hard to tell because, look, Rauner won't tell you anything. That's the difficulty. I'm a member of a club of African-American, leaders, and they asked me to put together an analysis like, okay, well, where's Rauner on these issues? Where's Quinn? How would they affect the African-American community? So I call up Quinn, and I email them, and they send me this, documents like 7 pages long, single-spaced, like all these things that they've done. So, and then I call the Rauner people. I'm like, what have you done? And they like, well, we're going to reduce regulations. And 100 flowers will bloom and, trickle down. And, if we get rid of the minimum wage, more black people will have jobs. I'm like, well, that's odd. Thanks. That's a great talking point.
Yeah.
So the short of it is we don't know. And that's the beauty of being a challenger. Is because you don't have to say anything that's credible or real. You can just be like magic pixie dust. Boom. I'm out. Vote for me. That's the joy in it. And that's the good thing about being in opposition. You don't have to actually take control of the machine and run it.
Oh, are you speaking
No,
metaphorically?
I'm talking. I used to work for the Democrats when we were in the minority,
Yeah.
and all we did was throw bombs, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I used to see my Republican colleagues, the Republican staffers. They would be staying late at the Capitol, writing bills, actually trying to figure out how to govern. We're at the bar,
Yeah.
having a good time, drinking Glenlivet. It was good.
Well,
Alderman Fioretti.
yeah, Alderman Fioretti, a rebuttal is needed.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
That was a metaphorical
It sure
assault on
was.
your
I
whole
love that
existence.
whole approach. Coming around the back. That's it. No.
Are you in this for the fun of it?
Oh my God. First of all, campaigning's fun, but to govern the city is going to be tough, and I think we all realize that, especially in the next 4 years. And we've stood up for the Progressive Caucus has stood up for very distinct differences. We've made proposals that have been voted down, whether it's from hiring more police to issues out there. And we're going to be increasing the numbers in the city council and including what we need to do. We're not here for, we're not bomb throwers. People say it's easy to make the no decision. No, it's not. Not with 40 of them against us. You know what it's like to talk to 42 people that don't want to talk to you or something, or because they're getting their orders from somebody else. And I'm not saying Will does that. I'm not saying
Well, then maybe you should have said 41.
The kid from Cleveland. The kid from Cleveland, I'm not saying anything. So, okay, I got to bring that up there. Hot in Cleveland, I like that TV show. So
Actually, that's a good transition. We usually like to hear you give your 1-minute biography up here. So, is this allegation true, Will? Are you from Cleveland?
I was born in Cleveland, and as Cleveland was destroyed, I was put on a spaceship
boo
and sent to
Cleveland?
Chicago.
Well,
Cleveland. It's a good city.
What's wrong? Yeah.
Well, actually, whoever booed Cleveland is probably from Cleveland, and I joined them.
Stop.
No. So seriously. So I graduate from college, right? And I say to my mother, I'm like, look, I have my college degree now. I finished up at University of Chicago. What do you think I should do? I'm thinking about staying in Chicago. She's like, stay in Chicago. There's nothing for you in Cleveland. And I stayed in Chicago, and I met Barack Obama literally 2 weeks after graduating from college. And back then, no one cared, so it was pretty easy to volunteer for him. And people were like, why aren't you working for Jesse Jackson Jr.? That's the guy with a future. What's wrong with you? That's a true story. True story. No, it's a true story. People are like, what the heck? Bro, Obama? Who is that guy? So, yeah, so I chose pretty well and worked for him for a number of years, including when he ran against Bobby Rush and lost 2-1. I'm real proud of that race.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's my story.
That's your story, and you're
All right.
sticking to
And
it.
isn't your family was involved in politics in Cleveland, right?
My grandmother was the equivalent of a Democratic ward committeeman on the East Side in the 60s and 70s. And my father taught me how to walk precincts. Mm-hmm. He was really good at it.
Mm-hmm. How so?
I am the least charismatic of my father's children. Like, I'm the quiet one. That's how kind of crazy it was. He literally, he could walk into this room, walk up to you, say the most insulting, annoying, vicious, vile thing, and you'd be like, oh, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. Oh my God, what a great joke. And you would be the butt of the joke, and you'd be like, that's totally cool. You are a funny dude, and I'm glad to be in your presence. I don't have that. I understand that, and so I just work really hard.
Fair enough. Kelly, what about you? How did you get into this business?
I'm the original nobody sent. I literally grew up on a tiny little island on the west coast of Florida. The mayor owned the grocery store and ran the city and the grocery store from a lazy boy recliner with a soggy cigar in his mouth. So that's like my model for constituent service. Here's a Snickers bar, here's your garbage can. And I moved here really at the perfect time, right as the whole year of the woman thing was breaking. I found a job at the National Organization for Women, and got deeply involved in those elections in 91, 92, and moved my way through. And literally, people are like, so whose niece are you? Whose cousin are you? I'm like, I am not related to anyone in this time zone I didn't give birth to. Like, this is truly just... So I'm growing my own little army, but, it's
taking a while.
It takes a while. It's the slow way. It's the slow way. But from now, I went to work for John Cullerton. We have shared Senate roots, and entered the House in 2011.
Here you are. And Bob, how did you get to this august position?
Grew up on the South Side, born on the South Side in Roseland, and I always took a different approach, and was involved in politics very early. Helped Dad Mick when he ran, and I got involved in some races, and got disillusioned very quickly with what happens with the city of Chicago, and I never thought I'd run for alderman in my life. Let alone run for mayor. And one day I picked up the Tribune, and they said 6 out of every 100 African-American kids make it to college. And I thought that was, we can do better. And I decided to run. I beat a 14-year individual who was in
14-year incumbent. She'd been in for 14 years.
Right,
Yeah.
14 years,
14
years old. You know how it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real proud accomplishment.
young in the second war.
You know how Chicago is.
Yeah.
So, and it was an African-American ward, 76%, and I won. I got to city council, and then realized we don't do anything about education anyway. So, that was part of the reason why I said we need an elected school board in the city of Chicago. So,
All right, now we want to follow up on that, but Dr. Davis has an update for us.
Looks like we got some news. Gene Shaheen just beat Scott Brown
All right,
in New Hampshire.
so that's a Democratic hold in New Hampshire, right?
Yep, that's
Okay.
a whole, yeah.
So that was definitely a seat that they could not afford to
lose.
So what's the score now, so to speak?
It still looks like the Republicans need 4.
4. Well, what do you think, Will? Are the Democrats going to hold the Senate, in your humble opinion?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I don't like to guess unless I'm in those states and can kind of see things. But from everything I heard, Braley's supposed to lose in Iowa. Hagan looks tough in North Carolina, like she's got a slight lead, but who knows what's going to happen because they have the new voter laws down there. So those are some areas for concern. Obviously, Begich in Alaska, which is a
Kansas.
red state. And then you have, Kansas, I don't know if that guy's going to caucus with the Democrats.
Yeah.
He's running as an independent against Pat Roberts, and a Democrat dropped out to endorse him. So I don't know what that guy's going to do if he wins and gets to the Senate.
But it would be amazing to see a Republican lose in Kansas either way, right? And then the governor is also on the ropes, Sam Brownback in Kansas.
Yeah, and they were like, Brownback's a Tea Party guy. Pat Roberts was kind of like a Bob Dole guy who decided to become a Tea Party guy in order to continue to be elected. And the Tea Party people were like, we kind of know who you really are, and we don't really care for you. So that's part of the issue in Kansas. I mean, and basically Brownback, what he did as governor, I mean, it's sort of austerity unnecessarily inflicted on a people in a state. And so it's had tremendous impact on their economic growth and education. And Kansas has always been sort of a centrist state, both when Republicans or Democrats ran it, they ran it from the center. So Brownback's moved way far to the right, so he's going to be in real trouble.
Going back to a topic that was raised before we took the break, you raised the issue, we're very local here, elected school board. And so, Bob, I have to ask you this question. Let's say you are elected mayor. Why don't I believe you that you will implement an elected school board? Won't you be like every other mayor, want to control them and pick your own? Why would you ever want to give up that power if you were the mayor?
no, I'm not afraid of the democracy, and I don't think anybody else should be. And I think it would be beneficial. We're the only school district in the state of Illinois that does not have an elected school board. I've talked to so many members across the board, across the state, who are members of school boards, and they get things done, and they know how to do it. And I think it'll improve our educational opportunities for our kids here.
You think you'll get more parents involved in the schools, that kind of thing?
Oh, I think we will.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But won't this bring politics to the schools? For the first time?
Isn't that the issue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Kelly. So if we do have an elected school board, I presume the law will have to be changed in Springfield. So it would actually be a fight that will happen in the General Assembly, correct?
Yeah, it would have to change at the state level.
What's your position on the elected school board?
You know, I'm actually not a fan of a fully elected school board. I've done a lot of research. As a member of the LGBT community, I've seen some of the harm that can be done. I don't want Texas textbooks. I don't want Aurora trans student policies. I would like to see some change to the way our school board is constructed, but I don't think that a fully elected school board is the answer. I wouldn't mind seeing a hybrid, as you see in Boston or New York. Larger school districts tend not to be fully elected. We've never had a fully elected school board in Chicago. I keep hearing people say, let's return to an elected school board. It never has been.
Right, that's correct.
So, it used to be sort of a merit selection board with qualifications, and so that's one model that could be looked at returning to if people want to reform the way the school board's done. Looking at some of the hybrids in other cities is another way to look at it. Looking at whether the appointees should actually meet some certain qualifications. We should have some parents on them. We should have some educators on them. Those are all on the table, but I can't wrap my head around a fully elected school
You
board.
actually think it's a possibility that the city of Chicago, now I know I take issue with a lot of the people that get elected in the city of Chicago, but that the voters of the city of Chicago would elect school board members who want to impose textbooks that say evolution never occurred?
The way that the far right and the Tea Party has utilized school board elections, which are notoriously low turnout elections, to create a farm team,
Yeah.
I'm not willing to take that risk.
But it hasn't happened in Evanston or Oak Park or Winnetka.
It happened in Aurora. It's happened in Wheaton. It's happened in the suburbs. It's just not a risk I'm willing to take.
Wheaton is a lot different from Chicago.
Without a doubt.
yeah.
And I've lived in Wheaton. I was the only. I wasn't the only lesbian in Wheaton because I had a partner. But
You got to put that on a T-shirt. The only lesbian in Wheaton.
no, literally, we moved in, and this sweet little lady came across the street and rang the doorbell. She had a chocolate cake. And it was like something out of some 50s sitcom, and I'm talking to her, and she said, "You girls leave every day." I'm like, "Yes, we have jobs."
Yeah.
She said, "Are you sisters?" "Well, no, my partner works." And she said, "I gotta go." She took the cake.
Oh my God. Oh man, that's cold in Wheaton.
Yeah, that's
Will, what
that's
do you
a new
think?
meaning to the word "took the cake." All right, phrase.
Breaking news, some sad news, Jim Oberweis apparently has lost.
Senator Durbin's just managed to hold on to that seat by his fingernails.
I gotta say, I'm really happy that Durbin won, but that means I have to deal with Oberweis.
All right.
I'm stuck with him in Springfield. I am stuck with him in Springfield.
Dick Durbin, another former Senate Democratic staffer down in Springfield.
Yay.
He used to work for the Senate Dems.
That's correct.
No free chocolate milk for everybody tonight.
Have I won yet? Are you checking my returns, man?
That Republican onslaught, they're going to bring out those anti-evolution books.
I could feel it overwhelming us in Rogers
Edgewater.
Park.
So, Will, elected school board, yes or no? Go.
Well, so here's the deal. I think that there's some element to having a hybrid board. I said that in my questionnaire to CTU back in 2011. But here's the other thing. We need to ask the question about what's the relationship between an elected school board and improving education outcomes for kids. And we need to look at the data on that. We do know there's a guy named Kenneth Wong who was at the University of Chicago and is now at Vanderbilt, who did a lot of research on education governance and showed that by having a strong central body coupled with strong local school councils, you achieved educational improvements in the city of Chicago. So he looked at what Chicago looked like before you had local school councils and after local school councils, and local school councils had a positive impact on education outcomes. The question I have is, what can we do to strengthen local school councils? What can we do to make sure that being on a local school council is not a gigantic waste of your time, but where you're actually engaged in making decisions? What can we do to give principals more power in terms of determining what needs to happen at the local level so that we can let 100 flowers bloom and 100 schools contend? And I think that happens when you bring back strong community control.
Okay. Bob, what do you think about the notion of elected school board where the mayor has some say and like a joint appointment elected school board, a hybrid as they're talking about?
Well, I think there's a lot of models to look at across the board. But I think we have to move towards an elected school board. Once we get that on the books, we can figure out how, in democracy, we're not afraid of. Will raises some interesting questions about stronger principles, how to make LSC stronger, but we're doing that out there. I've got 40-some schools in my ward, and including the few in the new ward, too. And together, they have been working with the principals, with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, and I think we have good results, but we got to keep finding resources, right? And hopefully we can turn to the state for some assistance here, because we need state assistance in our schools.
The state doesn't have any money, though, right?
Yeah, that's last
The
I
state
looked.
that was what this whole campaign is about how broke the state is and how to deal with that. So a question I had is, Kelly, is there going to be a tax increase right away in the lame duck session? That's been a question that's been thrown at Governor Quinn. Whether you win or lose, are you going to push this through with your good buddy Mike Madigan? Which, of course, they're not good buddies, but that's been a way to try to, bring Governor Quinn down by his association with Michael Madigan. Anyway, the question is, when are we going to see a tax increase? Because we're going to see one, right?
Well, to the good buddy factor, the piece of mail that I talked about was about my obedience to the speaker. And he called me the other day, just sort of checking in on what's going on in my campaign and where I've been, helping in others and what I was hearing. And I told him about the piece of mail and what it had accused me of. And he doesn't laugh a lot, and it's kind of creepy when he does. But he thought that was really funny, that I'm too obedient. So yeah, me and the governor were like this with the speaker. So my answer to the tax increase is dear God, I hope it's soon, because I work on one appropriations committee. I used to be on two, but that was way too depressing. We can't get by. We can't cut our way out of this problem. In order to have passed a budget with the rollback, we would have had to close 10 of the remaining 20 prisons that are already overcrowded. Now we can reform our way to fewer prisons, but we can't reform our way to 10. And we certainly can't do it in the next
today.
6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is the rollback, because tax rates are set to drop by law
In January. Right. So it needs to happen in the lame duck session,
So
which
we're-
I know you're about to ask me what that means. And the lame duck session is before the new General Assembly is sworn in. So however many people will not be returning in the new General Assembly, anywhere from 10 to 15 or so, will have the freedom of the condemned, if you will. They're not coming back. They have no risk for tough votes. And so there's a greater chance for tougher bills to pass. That's how we passed the death penalty repeal. It's how we passed the tax increase in the first place. It's how we passed civil unions. So I anticipate a fairly vibrant lame duck session.
And you're arguing that the condemned are the people who are not going back, as opposed to those who are.
Hypothetically speaking, yes.
But-
In this metaphor, yes.
But Mick, here's an opportunity to blame Rod Blagojevich for something.
Okay.
No, I'm serious.
Well, nobody ever passes that up.
No,
so
I'm
go for it.
serious.
Yeah.
And look, in 2002, I was asked to be on Ron Blagojevich's transitional committee around budget issues. And so it was like all these people, some were Republicans, some were Democrats. I was a Democrat. I am a Democrat. Anyway, liberal Democrat. Just want to put that on the record. And so we're all on this thing, and we're like, yeah, you're pretty screwed. Ryan screwed you. You're done. You have to do an income tax increase. And Speaker Madigan and Senate President Emil Jones, in their inaugural addresses in 2003, when they both, took over. Well, Speaker never really let go, but he was sworn in again, and Emil became the Senate President. They both talked about the need for an income tax increase, and Rod said, "I'm not going to do it." And I firmly believe if we had done an income tax increase in 2003, instead of like yearly fixes and patches and pension obligation bonds and pretending that we didn't owe these liabilities, we would have been in a much better position when the bottom truly fell out in 2009. Literally 25% of the state revenue just disappeared as a consequence of the economic downturn. There was major stress about how do we handle a 4% cut in revenue. 25%, it's like the end of the world as we knew it. And so there was no choice but to pass an income tax increase just to maintain a bare minimum level of services and to pay back the people that we had borrowed money from to provide services. Most services are provided by non-for-profit organizations. And the state, by not paying them on a timely basis, took money from them in order to balance their budget.
So what is the equivalent locally? What is the equivalent locally of the 2003 tax that wasn't passed that will save us, the city of Chicago?
I think the parking meter thing, for sure. The parking meter thing was look, the simplest thing in the world would have been to increase the parking meter fee. We wouldn't have had a middleman. We wouldn't have had a middleman who had to pay back Wall Street or investors or capital. And we could have increased it slightly, and the people would have been the benefits of it because the people own the asset.
Yes.
And last time I checked, cities are pretty good at being able to open up meters and take quarters out of them. Last time I checked, I think that's in the wheelhouse of city government. Is doing parking meters.
All right, hold that thought. We have an update.
Breaking
This is,
law.
for those of us who like journalism, there's something really cool going on. Dave McKinney is blogging tonight at Dave McKinney 123. And Craig Newman from the Sun-Times just retweeted what he's saying, which is that he's hearing from a top Democratic source that the House GOP is poised for 2 to 3 seats of pickup. So that would end Madigan's supermajority, 2 to 3 seats, and that's from Dave McKinney. So there you are.
All right,
Okay.
that's good. That's a good source.
Yeah.
And let's just
That's
quickly
some
here have a
surprise.
round of applause for Dave McKinney.
McKinney,
the, fine Sun-Times reporter who resigned in the middle of pressure from the Bruce Rauner
Bruce
campaign.
Rauner.
And he's
on
still
his
breaking
bosses.
news.
And he's still breaking news.
Yeah, that's not even beneficial to the Democrats. Ken, any news from Wisconsin with Walker?
Nothing yet.
Nothing
Nothing
yet.
that I've seen yet. No.
And have we confirmed that Kelly Cassidy has won yet? Let's make sure we. Yeah.
We got nothing.
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
The write-in vote is still
Just
being counted.
Hold your breath. For a
It's not
second.
one of
Yeah.
those three.
No, so the question I was asking, I guess I'll try it again. I understand exactly the point you're saying. A great opportunity was lost in 2009, or when was it, Mick? Was it 2008 or 2009 when they?
We've blocked it out.
Yeah,
haven't
blocked
we?
it out of my mind.
Wasn't it? End of 2008,
Okay.
And then it actually went into effect in 2009.
Yes, I always mix it up with the 2009 Olympics, but those two things are like converge in my mind of horrible moments in Chicago politics. But Bob, not to put you on the spot, I do believe you voted for the parking meter thing, did you? Yeah. In retrospect.
And I do believe after spending 4 hours with the CFO the day before Thanksgiving, going through all kinds of questions and all kinds of answers with him, and one-on-one in my City Hall office, we had already voted for the budget. There was a $150 million deficit, and so our backs were against the wall at that point. I did vote for it, as I said, but I think we were either, if not misled, we were purposely lied to as to what happened on it. And I still believe, and talking with the lawyers that have handled the lawsuit, that if the city would have done position changing, and I think there are still ways out of it under a new administration that doesn't want to deal with who's going to benefit from it, that we can undo the damage that was done and retrieve those parking meters for the people of this city.
So in other words, you're saying that if you're elected mayor, you'll try to blow up the parking meter deal?
I don't know if we will call it blow it up, but we're going to undo that deal. We undid it once before during this administration and made some changes, and but I think we're going to undo the whole deal.
Well, where could you get the money to pay back the people who own the parking
Well, that's a good question, because there are different ways of what a court can interpret it as, and it might be viewed as a nice donation that the company gave to the city of Chicago. Is one legal theory, and we won't have to pay it back.
Oh, in other words,
Morgan Stanley's known for their
I
generosity.
think yeah.
just like
But-
Bruce Rauner.
Yeah, but you run the gamut, and you can look at where we're headed and whether a bond would have to pay it off, and what the long-term effects are. So there are a variety of issues there that can still save the deal at this point.
Do you agree with that, Will?
You'd like to.
I don't know. You want to finish that sentence? Tell me why I'd like to, but I can't. I'd like to hear more.
I know, because
Curious.
I think, as you said, that we sold the assets, and no matter which way, how long the term of the contract is, 75 years is and none of us are going to be here for the end of that term of the contract, and if we can get them back. But I think we all have to look at it and see what we need to do.
Look, I'm not a lawyer, so he's counsel. He's a member of the bar. I would want to talk to other lawyers and see what we could do with the deal. The understanding I have is that, for the most part, the lawyers who negotiated the deal on behalf of the owners, and not the people of the city of Chicago, made sure it was pretty ironclad. There were very few loopholes, if any, to dodge through. So that would have to be the first instance. What are the loopholes? What does the plain language of the contract allow you to do that a court would be okay with? Because it doesn't make sense to litigate something, to make changes materially to the contract that you then have to litigate and then you lose. And not only do you have to pay your lawyers, you have to pay their lawyers plus damages. I mean, that's just, and you didn't win anything. So we need to make sure that there's an approach that makes sense. Look, if I had magic pixie dust, there's a bunch of stuff I would sprinkle it on, including the parking meter deal. But I don't own pixie dust. I live in the real
Then
world.
you'd share some with us, like that good Southside bud you were talking about.
I got you on the bud. I don't have the
That's all
pixie
I've been
dust.
thinking about
I got
ever
a guy.
since. Well, that's it.
but
Southside
seriously,
bud.
but one of the challenges is that we want to make public policy based on what we feel and what we think should be right, as opposed to what is. And sometimes we have to look at things as they are and figure out the best way to deal with it and move on.
But why did
but-
the city of Chicago, at Mayor Emanuel's orders, fight this lawsuit? And I understand the lawsuit may have been a long shot, but there was a lawsuit filed that challenged the constitutionality of the parking meter deal. Clearly, they were looking for anything, any straw to hold on to, whatever. Why did Rahm Emanuel fight that? It looked very much like he was fighting it because he didn't want a precedent of breaking privatization deals, and he wanted the flexibility and to enter into them going forward. I don't know if you guys have anything insights into that, but it's astounding to me that there was a lawsuit filed and we actually paid, city attorneys to join the attorneys for Morgan Stanley and fight this lawsuit to keep the parking meter deal in place. I think that's the answer right there. Nobody knows.
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, here's the deal. We shouldn't privatize assets where the city can manage them perfectly fine. And parking meters should have never been privatized in the first instance. And if you are going to do some sort of deal, you take the money over the lifetime of the deal as opposed to upfront, right? So if you take the money upfront on a privatization deal, it looks like you sold New York for wampum and firewater. It looks like a terrible deal years out. $1 billion, 75 years from now, will look like chump change. Literally chump change. And it'll look like we got robbed. And so part of the thing is that, I do think the mayor was right to try to fight to change the parameters of the deal. I'm not sure that there was much more he could do beyond what has been done. I certainly encourage him to continue to try, and those of us in the council want to do that. But the key is to pass a privatization ordinance that AFSCME introduced. It's been, he's a co-sponsor, I'm a co-sponsor. I think there are 35 or so co-sponsors. We need to pass that privatization ordinance so that there are some policies in place before any privatization deal comes forward, where there's some analysis done that the city council and the city are involved in.
Wait, wasn't that buried in rules? You
No,
talking about Rod
it's
Sawyer's?
moved.
It's moved.
It's just
now
moved out of rules.
It's in workforce development and audit. It's being negotiated.
Explain what
It's
this
the
actually.
evolution of Rahm into a Democrat. He got it out of rules.
And
Explain
now
what
it's
this
in
legislation actually
Pat
says.
O'Connor. So
All right,
Where is
wait,
it?
hold on a second, guys. Explain to people who don't follow the ins and outs. What does this legislation actually say?
I find your lack of hope disturbing. No, the privatization ordinance, and it's being negotiated now, but basically it would call for an analysis of a deal, and involving the council over a period of time before a deal could be brought before the council. So that's the idea: is that it would slow roll a deal. There would be analysis, information, impact on workers, impact on wages, sort of what the labor impacts would be before the council would take on a deal.
Because just to remind everyone, the parking meter deal was consummated in what was it, 48 hours
Yeah.
or 72 hours? Or
Well, no,
something
this
like that?
this particular
Couple days.
privatization deal, I don't even think they were thinking of the parking meter deal. As I recall, Will help me out here. It was when the Mayor Rahm, privatized the water call operation, the water department, and took jobs that people in the city of Chicago had and sent them to a company that was based in Japan. And so, so it was good for Japan, not so good for Chicago. And so that's when Rod Sawyer, I believe, was the man alderman who came up with the idea in the first place.
It's an AFSCME ordinance. So AFSCME is the primary mover behind it.
They wrote it, but
Rod
Rod
carried it. I signed on to it. Bob's on it. And it did have to do with the water center. Those employees were actually, I think they got their jobs back from the city as a consequence of the Black Caucus standing up to Rahm and saying we want these people being taken care of. But obviously, whenever you do privatization, most of the time, the people where you make your money is on the labor side of the equation.
That is correct.
And so the idea is, we're not going to save the city money by driving people out of the middle class.
Right.
And so we need to
That was an argument I made.
But
See, Ben, you can sit over here and still be on the left. That's all right.
Yeah,
baby.
but what Mayor Rahm did with that proposal, which was, I thought, a great idea, was it was sent to the Rules Committee, which is a committee of the City Council where they dump legislation that they never want to have to deal with. And it sat there for
I asked
how many
if we
years?
could get rid of the Rules Committee this year.
How many years did it sit there, Bob? 2 years? And now he's releasing it.
3.
3 years? So...
But there were
And
also
just in
there are
time
also
for the
portions of
election.
that there are also portions of that ordinance that were included in AFSCME's contract, which was ratified by the city of Chicago. So it was a broader discussion going on between the union and the fifth floor, and so but there's some elements of that were enacted in their collective bargaining agreement.
All right, Kelly, are there these kinds of underlying subterranean tensions between Democrats and Springfield? Or does everybody just get along really well in Mike Madigan's operation?
Well, our Monday morning kumbaya session is awesome. No, there are. I mean, I mentioned, I've been asking for 2 sessions now to have a more small d democratic set of rules like exists in the Senate. And there is no rules committee in the Senate. There's a committee on assignments. Everything gets assigned to a substantive committee. Everything can be heard. Doesn't mean that there's not still some all power over there, but it's much more small d Democratic in the Senate than it is in the House, and I would like to see that. There are certainly, with 71 of us, we're not very homogenous. We come from. I mean, my suite mate is Brandon Phelps. He represents basically Kentucky. He is the southernmost district in the state. I have to give a little shout out. We have the best secretary in the entire city of Springfield, because this woman, he was the lead sponsor of concealed carry. I was one of the lead sponsors of marriage. These bills were both happening at the same time. This woman would sit and answer the phones when people were robocalling on both issues and never once screw up. They're calling me because they're going to come and get me because I want to take away their guns. They're calling him because everybody's going to go to hell. Yeah. And she never once screwed up. That's right, Brandon's not going to let those people get married. That's right, Kelly's going to take away their guns. That's right, Brandon. I mean, she's amazing. Yeah. But Brandon and I get along really, really well. I mean, we choose to be together. Unlike the Republican Party where they're eating each other alive over their differences, we do a fairly decent job. But there are still places where it pops up. On energy policy this year, there were some issues over coal and nuclear that frayed that togetherness. And I won't say that the togetherness exists because the speaker encourages it. He herds cats. I mean, the one tiny little props I will throw the guy is that he does manage to keep a bunch of people who should hate each other from killing each other.
Now, does he do that through intimidation, or does he do that through sweetness?
Neither, frankly. I mean, he doesn't intimidate me, and I'm the least obedient member of his caucus. Well, maybe the second or third least. There's Monique Davis and Mary Flowers. But, he's not going to come and threaten me. But he manages to keep the caucus functional.
Bob, does Mayor Rahm threaten people?
Not to any of us, but a lot of other people I know. But
well, didn't he? Didn't you lose your ward in the last?
Was there a threat before you lost your ward?
It's now here.
Yeah.
This is the second ward right here.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that we are actually
You
in the
are
second
now
ward?
in the second ward.
Was it the second ward before?
Yeah,
they
all the way
changed it?
from down in Bronzeville, all the way up here now.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay, so in case everybody doesn't know the ins and outs here, you are the alderman of the second ward. You live on the near west side, and when the wards were redrawn a couple of years ago, lo and behold, it turned out your house was no longer in the ward you represent.
It's in the
Right?
28th ward. So go figure.
When did you find out about this?
It was interesting. At 10:30 at night, of course, and I'm thawing out from being outside all day, helping make sure the Democratic Party and the Governor Quinn gets elected today and tonight, and working with Scott Wagasback also in his ward. And I'm staying there. They called for a special meeting to deal with the remap on a Monday. On Tuesday, and it was Monday they called for it. It was going to happen on Wednesday. Tuesday night at 10:35, I've got the phone. I'm looking at the television. All of a sudden, my phone's ringing. It's one of my guys. We just got a call from somebody from UNO, and and he's saying, "Which ward do you want to live in? The 27th ward or the 28th ward?" Well, I told him to go.
UNO hasn't been elected, by the way, to
Yes.
do the remap
Right.
or
UNO
anything
as
else.
the charter
So-
school organization?
Yeah, and that person's just recently left UNO. So, but I told him to go screw him himself. But and my guy says, I can't tell him that. I can't tell him. No, yes, you can. We're not playing that game. We are not playing that game. So the following morning, we all got there. First time to look at the map was early in the morning. In fact, I think they were bringing it in as people were voting aye for the map. And as you remember, the Sun-Times and Tribune all had pictures, and people were looking at where's their house, which ward are they in, and that was it. The first time I think anybody saw the map was that morning after we voted for it.
So, do you think you were being punished for something?
No, not by this guy or anybody, no.
Ken, any updates before I move on?
No.
Nothing Walker, nothing on Wisconsin, and nothing from...
Too close to call? We don't know what's happening.
We got a couple things with the ballot initiatives with about maybe 2/3 of the precincts in. They're overwhelmingly winning, 81% for the victims' rights one, and the other one for voters' rights about 80%, but it's still only about half counted.
Okay. We should probably open to questions
Yeah,
from the audience
absolutely.
here, actually. So
Oh, there is an audience.
there is. Yeah, can you see them? Anybody have questions about the election or the election to come? School board, Bueller? No?
Do any of you need a beer?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Beers would be good.
Yeah.
All right. No one has a question. All right.
No,
Yes,
right
sir.
here, right here.
John.
For Representative Cassidy, could you share with us your current thinking on the state pension problem?
The question was, Representative Cassidy, could you share your thinking on the current state pension problem, which would be underfunded pension obligations by about $100 billion?
That. Yes. So we are still waiting for the Supreme Court to weigh in. We got some great tea leaves in their decision on the retiree health care in Harris v. Quinn, suggesting that that SB1 would also be held unconstitutional. Quite frankly, I think even the We Are One proposal, of which I was a co-sponsor and publicly called out the speaker along with 5 or 6 others who were summarily castigated for doing so, to try to force the speaker to put that bill on the board. That would also, by the same measure, have been unconstitutional. So if, in fact, that gets thrown out, we are back to square one.
And what is SB1, just for
so-
people who haven't been following all this?
So SB1 was the result of a great deal of negotiation and a lot of backing and forthing that would combine some dedicated revenue, some increased contributions with some targeted benefit cuts that had a floor, so that there were people, the lowest income annuitants would be held harmless. That has been challenged in court. The hearings have not been held. We're not really getting anywhere with the Supreme Court on that yet. But because there was a case already in the hopper over forcing retirees to pay for health care, and their decision, the court's decision in that case, made clear that that these benefits were guarantees. So it's pretty clear that SB1, as written, is going to be tossed out. Whoops, I think now we're getting all the beers over here. Which is probably the best way to negotiate a pension bill.
It's never a problem.
So that bill was passed and sent to the governor and signed, but it was immediately enjoined. There was a negotiated bill that passed the Senate overwhelmingly, House Bill 2404, that was negotiated with the We Are One coalition, a coalition of all the stakeholders, all the labor union stakeholders, that would have created a trade-off between COLAs and healthcare based on this question of consideration. So that basically you can cut benefits if you get something in return, if it's a conscious choice. But the decision in Quinn versus Harris suggests that even that isn't good enough. So I think that we're back to square one. Really in January, in terms of figuring out what to do, because we do still have this tremendous liability that we have to deal with. Most states with healthy pension funds and healthy budgets put about 5 to 7% of their GRF towards their pension obligations. We're in the 20s, so we got to do something.
Because basically what you're saying is, for all those whose eyes glaze over when we start talking about pensions, is this affects our ability to do anything else.
Absolutely. So this affects we are already only paying about 80% of our obligation towards schools because we have to prorate because we don't have enough money. We had to do the SMART Act and cut Medicaid benefits. We had to close prisons and juvenile facilities and halfway houses and violence prevention programs. We have cut everywhere. We eliminated adult dental. We eliminated podiatry. We eliminated wheelchair repair. The things that we cut are insane. We cut off care for pediatric ventilator patients. So the things that have had to be cut are mind-boggling. So we do have to fix our pension system, but more than anything else, we have to fix our revenue system. We have a totally broken revenue system. Our personal and business tax systems are broken beyond comprehension. We need a progressive income tax. We need to close ridiculous loopholes. We have an offshore oil drilling corporate tax credit. Think about that for a second. There are corporations in Illinois who take an offshore drilling tax credit. Thank you, whoever said that. That's exactly what I said.
And 40 states have and the federal government, of course, have a progressive income tax. And
Yes.
we're one of only 10 states that do not. But of course, I'm sure this will get done if Governor Rauner is in
Right,
charge of
right.
things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
sure
Okay. Next question. Anybody else? Yes.
For the alderman, can you talk a little bit about tax increment financing, TIF, and like how it can be a more transparent process, and how we can make sure we have access to
All right.
good dollars?
Tax increment financing. Nobody at this table likes talking about this at all, by the way.
Yeah, I'm checking my election returns while you guys do that.
So
we
the quick primer,
completely
yeah.
avoided this topic, even with Ben Joravsky on the panel. So thanks for that
That's my
question.
mother out there.
So,
So what are TIFs in case there's anyone possibly in the room, like the 15-second version
Yeah,
of
I'd
this?
love to
tax
hear this.
increment financing districts are areas of the city or the state where a portion of the tax revenue, instead of the growth going to the taxing bodies, is frozen at a certain point in time, and all the increment goes into a pot of money. Depending on your perspective, that pot of money can be used for economic development in areas that don't have it, or it becomes a slush fund for whomever controls the fifth floor of City Hall.
That was a very fair answer.
I'm doing the best I can. I was asked to answer a question with facts, and I decided to do that, like most politicians. So what because the Fourth Ward is really an anarcho-syndicalist collective. Didn't expect that, did you? We have committees for everything, and so we have advisory committees for our TIFs. And so they are everyday people who approve of the use of TIF funds for projects before those projects receive the funding from the city of Chicago. And all those meetings are public, and they're announced, and they're put in the Hyde Park Herald, our version of Pravda. And, everybody's informed. And so, we have robust conversations, and we do some interesting things. So we use TIF money to build a hotel. On 53rd Street. It was the first hotel built on the Mid-South Side in maybe 50 years. And I know, I'm about to get to the punchline. They'll stop booing me. The redevelopment agreement for that hotel includes language that requires the developer to pay full-time workers working at that hotel the Chicago living wage. And that was a consequence of the people of the Fourth Ward and their vision for how government money should be used and how it should be tied to creating living wage jobs for people who need it on the Mid-South Side. So that's,
you're arguing that tax increment financing can be a force for good, a tool for good, and that you can do it with some degree of transparency.
So, yes.
Anyone at the to the left want to
So you're
comment?
You don't think we should just end the program and just borrow out money if we have a good project, so that we have something more equitable, so it's fair, so that the neighborhoods with the wealthiest TIFs don't have the benefit of a program that's supposed to help the poorest of neighborhoods? Don't you think that's a great idea? Shouldn't I be elected mayor?
That's a very fairly phrased question, by the
No,
way.
I think that using TIF money in areas of the city. So here's the problem with TIF, right? So if you want to use TIF in areas that don't have a great property tax base, those TIFs don't have any money in them.
Yeah, that is correct.
Right? So TIF really isn't useful except to sort of be a very small part of a layer of financing. What we need, what would really be great, it would be super, if Kelly Cassidy and Christian Mitchell and, because we can't count on Washington to do anything, but during the veto session, if they pass an income tax increase,
Can Christian and I be in charge?
that would be awesome. That would be great. And Kwame and a bunch of other people.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be just us.
But if you guys passed an income tax increase that allowed municipalities to share in the increment from 3% to the 5%, that would have given the city of Chicago $159 million a year over the last 4 years.
So you're saying just recognize this for what it is, a tax that generates money, and instead of dedicating that tax to those communities that are lucky enough to be wealthy, put it into the general coffers so the entire city can share it.
What I'm saying is that you need the state to share more revenue with the city so that the cities have a source of revenue that they can use for projects, for services, for everything else. I mean, part of the problem that the city is facing is that you've got retrenchment on a massive level from the federal government. I mean, the sequester and the Tea Party in the House and the Republicans are probably going to take the Senate. Producer, where do we stand on that, Mr. Davis?
Any more word on Senate races or?
Democrats have picked up Minnesota and Maine, and Republicans, South Dakota and Texas. No changes.
South Dakota has gone to Republican. Yeah.
That was
back to tips.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the problem
Breaking news.
the problem the city has is how do you find the revenue to create economic development projects? And so TIF was a tool created by Harold Washington.
Well, it was. Wait, hold it. Time
Evoke
out.
his name. Evoke his
Wait,
name.
I mean, poor Harold. It's not here to defend himself. So
No,
I have to
I mean,
defend
it-
him for him.
No, but
I mean, he didn't create it.
Well,
It was a
it's
state
been
law.
around,
The TIF
yeah,
was,
but
it
was
was
along
around
in
for
the
a long
70s.
time.
The first TIF in
Right.
Chicago was created by Harold Washington, but it was a totally different set of parameters that he set up that would govern it to police against the very violations that we've seen for the last
Well, I
40
think
years.
We
gotta
can go
start
on with this
looking-
for a long time, but
Yes.
I think that, and we should have a
But
full.
I agree with
we
you,
should have
Ben.
a
Wait,
full
hold on,
session
hold on. I
this.
do want to say this, that I do agree with you, Ben, that
I love it when
there
people
needs
say
to be
that.
a better
My
way to
goodness.
find... Wait, hold on. Because it's an issue of fairness. Unless Inglewood and Roseland and Austin and North Lawndale benefit as much from economic growth, you will have two cities.
That is
and
correct.
unless you create the amenities and the infrastructure that those communities deserve and should have, you're not gonna make those communities
No, I
viable.
agree.
As a matter of fact,
That's
that's
just
why I
one
tolerate the
TIF
difference.
across
Yeah,
the board.
that's why I say
One
that.
big TIF.
Right, we should
That's
should
it. That's the only way
discontinue
we're
this
gonna
as an
do this.
economic development program
Right.
because it's not a fair economic development
No, it's
program.
It's-
Enough
it's
about
ex-
tips. I just found out I won.
All right, let's hear it.
What was the score?
According to a DuPage Republican, and Christian won too. So Dennis Reboletti has called this race for Kelly Cassidy and Christian Mitchell. That's what we know.
So you're going to introduce a bill abolishing TIFs? That's your first thing. Now that you're safely reelected.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Joining
All right,
forces.
we may have time for one more question. In the meantime, I'd like to ask Matt and the Blue State Cowboys to get prepared to come up. They're going to close things out for us as we turn the page towards city elections. Does anyone have a question that doesn't involve really complicated tax policy to ask?
I hear crickets.
No, that's yes, over there.
Why is there going to be a very large basketball stadium built in the South Loop?
Why is there going to be a very large basketball stadium built in the South Loop, subsidized with TIF money, by the
With
way?
and a Marriott hotel. Don't forget that.
Yes. Anyone care to weigh in on that? Rom, I'll answer that. Rom wants it. That's why.
Well,
And you know, stadiums next to a convention center have not fared well across this country, and I don't see it faring well. Especially, wouldn't you rather be a junior or a senior in high school right now playing in the house that Michael Jordan built for the next 10 years, rent-free, than some goofy, idiotic project down in the South Loop at this point? So. And that's why part of it that we started taking away, because they knew I was going to be opposed to that project. And all of a sudden we transferred all these powers to the new second ward where up here where people did not vote for me, that people didn't were disenfranchised, because now I control zoning and all those so-called powers up here. And some of the aldermen who have abrogated their responsibilities up here don't want to do anything up here. And
By up here, you're not meaning up here.
up here, yeah, not up here on the stage, but up here in this new
He means-
second ward. So,
gotcha.
And the project is in the third ward, just to be clear, right? Yeah.
yes, it is. It's not in that fourth ward. So.
Okay. And you know the backdrop to all this,
So,
which is yeah,
can
please.
I mean, look, I can understand why people are upset about TIF money being used for that project, but I would strongly recommend that you reach out to Alderman Pat Dow, who worked very closely with the Prairie District Neighbors Association, South Loop Neighbors, a bunch of neighborhood associations around this issue. McCormick Place has to continue to develop. They need more hotel rooms in order to compete with other convention centers around the country. And McCormick Place and O'Hare Airport are the two major economic engines for the city of Chicago.
But we
So
don't need to
what-
put a stadium there.
Dude, did I interrupt you? Did I?
We don't need
did
to put a
I?
stadium.
Did I cut you off? So let me just finish real quickly. I think you should have a long conversation with Alderman Pat Dow, who's negotiated a community benefits agreement and a number of other things that will benefit the community as a consequence of using TIFs. It's not my ward, but I know that she's extremely conscientious, and I would have a conversation with her.
I was just going to say, I think the backdrop to all this is the hope from the mayor and others that there will be a casino that is added to the equation at some point in time. So to be continued on that front. At my crib.
Yeah.
Only if you bring that South Side bud. All right.
How many times can I vote for a casino?
we're out of
That's what I
time.
wanna know.
And the pixie dust.
That's right. We'll continue this conversation afterward informally, but I hope you guys will stay for a minute to listen to Matt perform as we transition from this election in the next few days very quickly to the municipal elections in February. Matt wanted to offer us something that a composition that he contributed to the conversation 4 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, when Mayor Emanuel was first running.
Yeah, the first thing I want to offer is an apology to my friend Brian Wilkie here, one of the great musicians in town, for putting him through this. A song he's never heard. I can't even remember what key it's in. We wrote it 4 years ago during the blizzard of 2011. Shoveled out my house on February 1st. Told my wife, give me the rest of the day off. My office is closed. I got an idea for a song. We were 3 weeks away from a mayoral election. So being the 50-year-old white lawyer I am, I decided Rom needed a rap song. So I wrote it, recorded it, slapped together a YouTube video, got a call at work the next day. Friend said, did you write a rap tune about Rom? I said, yes, why? He said, well, it's on the Channel 5 News right now. I got a call last spring from good King Rich. He said the time had come for him to make a switch. He said, Rom, you've always been my boy. I said, Rich, you've always been my goy. Then he started talking about his plan to slip on out and make me the man. He said, here's the Teflon, you're gonna be a great Don. Do the dance like my very own Black Swan. Then I said, I will prevail. I got Hollywood cash, I'm too big to fail. Then I let it be known that I was back in Chi-Town, measuring drapes and getting ready to throw down. And just like that, the field cleared. The wannabes all disappeared. I got rock star money, I can buy my own island. My family wants Thai food, I take them to Thailand. Stay off of my court, I'm playing a blood sport. What up, Lynette? Goodbye, bye, Bridgeport. No need to vote, I will prevail. I got Hollywood cash, I'm too big to fail. Then I hit the streets with my top advisor, the guy in charge of my hand sanitizer. I smile and wish all the people well. Shake a few hands and then get my Purell. They say I'm out of touch with the working man, or with my $1,000 suits and my year-round tan. I said, spare me the rap about the neighborhood crap. Garfield Park is just a place on a map. You wanna play ball? Put a check in the mail. I got Hollywood cash, I'm too big to fail. Public schools, I don't need them. Parking meters, Lord, I don't feed them. My big money crew is gonna rock the downtown and throw a few bones to the black and the brown. Kiss up to all the right preachers. Send dead fish to the union teachers. Bringing it nonstop, rocking the hip hop. Did I mention that my uncle was a city cop? Vote for me and you touch the third rail. I got Hollywood cash, I'm too big to fail. Yeah, I want to send some shouts out to my crew in the 323, what up Hollywood? And all my peeps in the 847. Come see me on the 5th floor real soon. We out. Brian Wilkie, and how about it for my friend Anna Lee Kane back there? Ben and Mick, thanks for having us out.
Matt, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you guys for coming out. Democracy prevails on some level, right? And we'll be back again next month. Thank you guys. Take care.